is episode 4 of the podcast. We discuss fan theories for Stephen King novels as well as other novels as well. So if you're into fantasy, science fiction, this is the place to be. Um, all right, turning it over to Christy. How are you today?
I'm doing good today. I know I wasn't here last week, but I'm glad to be back. Excited. Really looking forward to it.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be back. I missed you guys. um, Thomas, how are you?
I'm doing good. My back's feeling better.
Oh, I didn't know it was hurt.
I coughed.
Oh.
And that just did it. And that was me for the past couple days. But I'm doing better now. So
Good.
that's awesome.
We had a coworker that said he sneezed 18 times in a row and rearranged his spine.
He did say that. Yeah, he said his spine
Was it Justin? Justin sneezes like a madman, like just
No.
repeated and with no cadence. I hate it.
It was not. It's the coworker we say that is cursed by a gypsy or I don't well, they don't curse people. Whatever people curse other people.
He doesn't have like one monkey's paw. He has like the whole cursed monkey.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yes.
The whole monkey was pickled in the curse juice. And
Yeah. He's crossed, 100 black cats and stepped on all the cracks in the sidewalk.
Yes. Exactly. He worked at a ladder
In fact, he
factory
goes
and
for
walked
them.
under all of them.
Just hanging from the ceiling.
Yes. So as far as I know I said I had a big reveal that I figured out that I thought was interesting. I think
Yeah.
Thomas already looked this up. So
Okay.
if you have now this was interesting to me. So if you have your copy of the book, go ahead and go to the beginning
Oh
of the
yeah.
book where it has all the quotes.
I think we
So
were we
yeah.
were sort of discussing this briefly.
Now
Okay. All right. Mhm.
it'll have like the quote from, well, I guess the song from Blue Bruce Springsteen, and then
Bruce
Blue
Springsteen.
Oyster
And then Blue Oyster Cult.
Blue Oyster Cult,
Which
yeah,
is a great song, by the way.
and Country Joe and the Fish, which is
Which
amazing.
that is amazing.
Is that a
And I'm
thing that y'all
also
understood and I didn't get? Like, it's amazing. Is it from something? Is that
So yeah, I looked into um Country Joe and the Fish because I was trying to figure out what he was referring to. So it says, "What's that spell?" three
yeah.
times. I could not for the life of me figure out what he was trying to get at with that.
I don't know either. I feel like I am far enough at this point to understand what he would be getting at, and I have no
Yeah,
clue. And if you don't,
yeah,
if I neither of you does, and you guys are finished, then
no idea,
I'm
no idea.
at a
everything in the
loss.
book never gets resolved? What's that
Right?
spell?
Right?
There is one. Well, I guess it's on the next page. There is. I guess. Well, it's not a song. I don't know. I don't know who Edward Dorn is though.
Oh, yeah. So
Oh,
that's what I wanted to point out.
Oh,
So,
okay.
if you guys this isn't a spoiler, but go ahead and pull up just like the cover for Dark Tower Book 1. So just
Okay.
pull up the cover of it, just look at the cover, look at the title of the first Dark Tower book. All right. And Thomas, I already know you know this, so you don't have to if you don't want to.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. The Gunslinger, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So
Right. And it
obviously Western
looks
themed.
Western themed. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. I've seen this cover. I've never read any of the Dark Tower series, but I've always
Not a
wanted to.
problem.
So.
Not a problem. Yeah.
But I have seen this cover. Obviously before I ever even thought about reading The Stand, so
Yeah.
it didn't really like catch my eye. Other than that, it's kind of a cool cover.
Yeah.
Definitely Western. There's a tower in the background, which just makes me think of, well, not the tower in Lord of the Rings that has the eye, but it has that same sort of feel to
That
it.
sinisteriness to it.
Yes, yes.
You know what? I never thought about that.
That's at least my
Huh.
first thought.
Huh.
The
Interesting.
character on the front, his description, or his look,
Hmm.
is similar to the description for Randall Flagg to me.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
actually, I kind of was, that's something that I was thinking about too, because uh, obviously it's kind of like that Western motif.
Mm-hmm.
And with Flag, he has a very, very kind of like Western feel about how he dresses.
Yes.
I think they say
So
cowboy boots specifically.
The
Yeah.
one thing that King always refers to with him is like his his worn dusty boots.
Yeah.
I don't remember if he says anything about a cowboy hat or even like cowboy like outfit of any kind besides the boots, but
the rest of what he
it
wears
feels
is a
very Western.
blue like jean jacket, if I remember correctly.
Okay. I could
Yeah,
see. Obviously, I don't know if that's a character in the Dark Tower, or it's supposed to be, but just first glance, at least, not knowing anything about it and having read almost all of The Stand, that's who comes to mind for me. First off,
who knows? Maybe Randall Flagg is in the Dark Tower. No one really
well,
knows.
which I know he is.
Okay.
It's whispered
I do
about
know
on the
that.
winds, but we don't really know. There's no way to know.
We can't be sure. We'll never know. Even if we read it, we'll never know.
So, yeah, I was kind of thinking, like you just pointed out, like, so Flag, the way he's described, is kind of Western feeling, and then obviously
Right.
Dark Tower, it's very Western themed. So then I was looking at this, I was like, who is Edward Dorn? Like, is that even like a real person?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So I was
I
like
don't know.
confused. So go ahead and type in Edward Dorn wiki or something to that effect if you want. Now
No,
this was,
I'm super curious.
yeah, this
Oh.
was interesting to me.
Okay, so he was a poet,
Mhm.
and I had a feeling he was a poet. I mean, really only based off of where is it? The line, "We need help," the poet reckoned. Not that that
Right.
means that Edward Dorn is a poet, but it just felt like that made him a poet for some reason.
Yeah.
No,
Exactly.
I thought the same exact thing.
Well, certainly all the pictures of him, he dresses very Western, or did.
Hmm.
He's not. He's definitely not around. Okay.
So when
Interesting.
if you pull up the wiki for Ed Dorn.
Oh, you said the wiki. That's right. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Ed Dorn. That's a big old tie.
It's a
I was
massive
looking at
tie.
his wiki picture. It's a really
Yeah.
big tie. Okay. Associated with the Black Mountain Poets. Oh, his most famous work is Gunslinger.
Hmm.
Interesting. It's kind
Hmm.
of a long poem in 6 parts. Okay, that's cool.
So apparently it was kind of this trippy set of poems where there was like talking horses, sentient barrels. I mean, all
Wait,
sorts of wild stuff and like
bear
symbolism.
barrels? Like
Yeah, like
That's awesome.
like a barrel comes to life.
There's
interesting.
sentient jars in Elden Ring, so that's fair.
Okay. Well.
Yeah. So so I'm like reading through like his main work, which is the Gunslinger, and kind of like
Right.
what happens in the poem and how it's all kind of hallucinatory
Right.
and wild. And and I was like, the way I interpret it is, so he kind of like leaves these clues. And when I say he, I mean King. So King is kind of leaving these clues for you. So if you look it up and it's like, oh, who's Edward Dorn? I don't know. And then you find it and it's like, oh, okay, it's this poet. His main work was The Gunslinger. And then I guess he kind of wants you to think about that, so you find the tie-in to the first Dark Tower book. It's almost like he leaves these
Oh,
like
yeah, okay. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
breadcrumbs. Yeah, like he's leaving the breadcrumbs for you to kind of pick up on, like, oh, okay, these two books are related. He doesn't,
Yep.
yeah, he's not gonna come out and say it explicitly, but he's like, I'm gonna leave these
No.
little clues so you can figure it out later. Because I mean,
Interesting.
why else would he quote that poet unless the two books are interrelated?
That shows like how far ahead he was
Hmm.
thinking about that concept.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
definitely. Because
Exactly.
I think the Stand came out before the first Dark Tower,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh
I
yeah.
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 Oh yeah, here's like in the front, it's got all of his novels and stuff. So the first Dark Tower came out 4 books later. So yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, to me that was like really, really interesting that he's leaving these kind of little, clues and tidbits in the books so you can kind of
Right.
figure it out on your own.
But I almost feel like if you're willing to take the time to sort of pick it up and like really look at it, because
Yeah.
it's not gonna like, they definitely don't pop out at you and you're like, oh my gosh, I see what he's trying to do. You have to like sort of do your research a little bit,
Hmm. Hmm.
I was
which
just thinking how
is
I'm almost
really awesome.
disappointed in myself because like the Bruce Springsteen song, like that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
And so does the Blue Oyster Cult song very
Right.
much. And I'm surprised at myself for not going back and wondering like, hey, like I don't see how this fits in, like, and not going
Yeah.
back and researching it. So I got to be a little bit more thoughtful too. Um,
Yeah, definitely. Me too.
Especially with that line, like, because I remember reading it and thinking like, what's that spell? I'm like, oh, cool. So like maybe there is going to be like some type of mysticism in the book that I get to catch on,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if that's what that's for, but that's like the feeling that I got. And then when I read "We Need Help," the poet reckoned, it made me just think that I understood it because I was like, oh, like that's a almost philosophical, like inward looking way of like I can see a character thinking that like kind of
Hmm.
sarcastically, like after the beginning of the book and things start to really fall apart and 99% of people die. So I feel like I thought I understood it, and it's interesting to look back now and realize like I got what I saw out of it, but there was more that was actually there if I had like done the research and looked.
Hmm. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the interesting part to me is a lot of people say like, oh, well, he's very like off the cuff writer. He doesn't really like plan things out meticulously. Like he just kind of goes with the
There's
flow.
no way. There's no
But
way.
then, yeah, when you start like kind of dissecting the stand and looking at all the details that he put into it and like parallels with, other literary works, you're like, there's no way that he was just kind of just flying by the seat of his
Throwing it
pants.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah. When it felt
Yeah,
right. Yeah, there's no way. Yeah.
it fits together too well. There's too many like little clues and pieces that he
Yeah.
puts in there. So,
And I know there's got to be clues throughout that I'm like not even picking up on. Um,
mhm.
I'm almost sure that that's true.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, for everyone.
There's song lyrics at the beginning of each book too. So like book 1
Oh,
has a
really?
couple.
Oh,
Yeah. In
oh,
fact, one of them is Larry Underwood,
oh.
his song that like hits the charts at number 1 or whatever. For book 1, it's on page like this? 4, 3.
I think
Page
that is
1.
actual page
Technically,
1. Yeah.
actual page 1, I think.
So you step outside the Roman numerals.
Yeah. So I don't know who the Silvers is, but that's also one of them for book 1.
Hmm.
And it has like
Silvers.
the of course like the time frame of the book of each book.
Interesting.
Which the song listed for the Silvers is that one's pretty obvious, especially if you like haven't even started reading The Stand. And if you know what The Stand is about, in a general sense, that one's pretty obvious. I think because it's talking about, a new disease. So I don't remember the ones for book 2. Okay, I don't remember where book 2 starts.
I remember
I'm
reading
I'm curious
the
about
Baby
those now.
Can You Dig Your Man, Larry Underwood lyrics, and
Yeah.
thinking that was like some like 40s or 50s era song that like I had missed out on, and I was like surprised that wasn't in Fallout. Like, and then I moved forward and realized, like, and I
I thought
remember
the same
getting to
thing.
Larry Underwood and thinking like,
Mhm.
oh, that's not
wait.
that. Like,
Yeah. I remember thinking the same thing. I was like, wow, I've never heard of this Larry Underwood. It's got to be an old song. It's got to be an old way of like speaking about your lover, basically. And I was like, I've never heard that one. Well, little did we know.
also, I was thinking,
page?
or are you looking for the book to
for
see
book
what?
2? I'm just curious, what they have for book 2.
Like in the 30, like chapter 30 area. I could be wrong.
Oh wow, okay, that's a lot further away then. I think you're right.
396.
396.
It's got a Paul Simon song.
Oh, okay. And a Chuck Berry song. Oh, interesting. The Paul Simon one I like that one. Because they're basically remaking America.
Oh,
at a certain point.
Yeah. Huh.
Or
Interesting.
trying to in whatever way that they can.
Yeah.
The next song kind of pulls from that same, like, what's your idea of America?
Right. Talking about hamburgers on the grill, a jukebox. Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, okay. I like that.
One thing I really like about Stephen King and his suspense or horror, the way he lays it out, and perhaps it's because I've been rewatching The Walking Dead lately. But I always think about like, oh, what would I do in that situation? And then the other day when I coughed and hurt my back, I was like, it's so dangerous when there's no, infrastructure, when there's no programs that are like run by entities that don't exist once people aren't there to run them. Like, what is America if there's no humans there? And then the idea of a character does something and I think like, oh, that's stupid. Like, why'd you go in there without paying attention? Like, that's not how you operate in a post-apocalyptic scenario. You always got to be ready. His characters never really do that. Like, they never act a fool in such a way that removes me from the story. And I think it's because his characters are so solid that like he writes them in a way that you believe what they do because it fits their characters. But I find that really respectful because there's so many times where I'm watching something or I'm reading something and I'm like, oh, this is ridiculous. And rarely do Stephen King characters, though they do ridiculous things, they do it within the bounds of their character and it fleshes them out as opposed to like removes me from the story.
It's
and
still something they would actually do. It's not out of character for them to do whatever that is. Yeah, I agree.
And I also think that makes when the bad guys or people who are going down the wrong path like have those moments of redemption. Not that there's too much redemption to be found in this book for most bad guys.
Yeah.
But it makes that more prominent. Kind of like it kind of fits back into the feelings that we had talking about the kid with Trash Can Man and how like for a second you see Trash Can Man as a human because you're worried about him. even though he's
Yeah.
this horrible monster, like that's, doing and probably will do more terrible things. And Stephen King just works that in such a way that and if it does take me out of the story, it's because I wanted a second to think about it. It's not because I'm like, oh, that's ridiculous. Like, let me
Right.
go do
Yeah.
something else now.
Yeah. That's an interesting thought. I agree with that. He always writes his characters well. So
To kind of go along with that, I had the thought that if he was going to do parallels with Lord of the Rings, this is really the only, I guess, book where he could do it, right? Because I mean, how are you going to draw parallels to Lord of the Rings in like Salem's Lot or Carrie or Christie? It doesn't work, right?
You need
yeah,
something
you
huge.
can't, or it, or yeah. Well, yeah, no, I mean not it either.
Yeah.
Gandalf.
I-
Who was Gandalf?
Oh, yeah. I guess if anything, he could do it in the Dark Tower, right? Because that's a
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a series, and Lord of the Rings is a trilogy, but
I almost feel like Dark
it's
Towers is like this is like Lord of the Rings. The Dark Tower is like the Silmarillion and all the other like side information that is the next expansion of the epic. And he calls it his magnum opus too. It's like, the Bible version of his stories. Like it's like Old Testament stuff. That's how I felt reading the Dark Tower though, and kind of how I felt reading this too.
Yeah, I agree with on the stand. It does feel sort of Old Testament-y. Not, I mean, not literally, but just in the way that it is written, I guess.
It's hard and brutal, and faith matters.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think what the Dark Tower is his own lace series, right? I don't think he's got others that he's.
I don't think so. I could even think of a book that like kind of steps in after the next book, with the exception of Dark Tower. Now I haven't read.
Yeah, I don't see. I don't see any other. I mean, obviously, there are ones that sort of are in the same universe or tie in together in some way, but it's sort of all comes back to either the Stand or the Dark Tower in general. But I don't think he has any other series. So yeah, I mean, definitely his magnum opus for sure.
When I put my book
ahead.
down and just leave it there, it always opens to the picture with the kid and the wolves. Just when I set it down every time, and he's like, oh.
That was a very nice moment. Aha.
Where are you?
Yeah, I was just about to ask that question.
Yeah,
I was gonna
that's
say,
what I was about to say. Where I was.
Where are you?
I'm on 54.
Oh, nice.
I haven't the very beginning, so I haven't even started reading through it. A lot has happened. I think the last thing that I have read is Nadine going into the mountains to try to talk with Randall Flagg using the planchette, which I actually had to Google because I had he was talking, he's describing this thing, and I'm like, I don't even know what this is. None of this. Okay, this is y'all are gonna laugh really hard, because I had no idea what it was, and he was describing it, and before I got to the part where she's actually using it, if I just read through, I would have understood what she's trying to do. But the whole time she's talking about how she's just so ready, and she goes to Larry, right? And she was like, sleep with me. And he says, no joke. I literally thought she had a dildo in a box.
You know what? I feel like I remember that thought crossing my mind too. And I was
It's
like, is that what it's gonna be, Stephen King?
I don't know what a planchette is. I was like, is that a fancy word? for it? I legitimately.
It's like the French word for it.
Yeah, I know. I was like, that's just a nice, pretty French word for it. So finally, I was like, I have to Google what this is because there's a certain point I was like, that doesn't make any. Oh, it was describing how it had like the little caster wheels and the pencil, and I was like, what? I was
What an
like,
architect's
okay,
dildo?
yeah. So I finally Googled it, and I was like, it's like the early Ouija board. Okay.
I had
Had no
the
clue.
exact same experience. I was like, "What is that?" No one knows what that is. What is that term? Like,
Which apparently, even on a Ouija board, that's what the little thing is called. It's still called a
oh,
planchette, but
huh,
you know, before it was just the one piece and it would actually write, but
huh,
then that sort of fell out of popularity, and they still took that main piece, made it smaller, and then created the board with it. And I was reading the wiki page on it, which was actually kind of interesting. It
huh.
became really popular in during the Victorian era during seances and stuff. But then sometime in the 20th century, um, Ouija boards were being manufactured, and it sort
Oh,
of eclipsed the planchette itself as a utensil for communicating with
Interesting.
the spirits.
huh.
So where people like us had never even really heard of it.
Yeah.
So which I thought that was
Americans
like,
are
okay, well that
lazy.
makes
They
sense.
want to see the letters. They don't want to write
Yeah, exactly. Um, so that is where I have left off. But I had to tell you guys about what I thought it was because I was just like laying in bed reading and just like laughing because
Yeah. One
um go ahead.
one of the things that always confused me is, so if that's like the way to communicate with the other side, why is it manufactured by Milton Bradley?
Oh yeah, that's
That's a
good.
good point.
Good question. I forgot. It is. Is that what the wiki says on
I
it? It was.
I
Yeah, it is manufactured by them.
yeah. I'm
That.
just like,
Yeah.
how, like, that makes no sense at all. So it's like, oh, let's make Mousetrap
Yeah.
and then also a way to talk to Satan. Like,
Yeah. Here you go.
Builds character.
okay.
Yeah. Would you like to talk with your dead dad and also play,
You want to play a
play
game of
this game?
Battleship and then contact like Abe Lincoln. Like, I mean, let's do both,
They definitely took a turn there somewhere.
right?
So if you've gotten
That's interesting.
there, have
Yeah,
you
that's
gone to the first
page 50
committee that
or
they have?
oh yeah. So they've had a couple of meetings with just them, but they have already had the main one where they sort of decide on everything and everybody is at the meeting in that auditorium. Yeah.
I've been wanting to ask a question about that meeting. Did
Mhm.
y'all see that coming with Harold? Because it blew me away. Like I was like, oh,
Um
what's he gonna do? Like, what's his play?
no.
And I just didn't
I
see it coming.
I didn't either. I did expect him to do what Stu was thinking that he would do, which was I think
Like nominate
he's
himself, I think it was. He thought he was going
yeah,
to.
or rally everybody behind him and that other guy that is always like super negative. Um, Impening is his last name or something like that.
Impotent, yeah.
Um, and it almost felt a little bit too obvious, right? That you're expecting Harold to do that, but it still surprised me that he was just like, no, make them permanent, all of them. Um,
Drunk of
and so I
crazy
kept trying
genius.
to think, all right, what is his angle here? Like, what is he trying to gain? And actually, Stu has a really thought where he says, um, Harold wanted to be the one, like he'll be remembered as the one who put that forth, because everybody was like going crazy and cheering, and everybody was like for it, and I don't think anybody said no. So they got their wish that the people on the committee are the permanent uh, uh, people representing the whole community, but at the end of the day, everybody's going to remember that Harold is the one who put that forth. So maybe that's it, but I have a feeling that maybe that's not even what Harold's intention was. But then what was he trying to gain out of that? And I couldn't really come up with anything.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, is he trying to get their trust to be able to
Yeah,
maneuver in
yeah,
some way after it? Maybe to get like people on his side, so if he does get
yeah,
caught doing anything weird, he has this goodwill.
right. I
That's
don't know.
yeah. It, I agree with Thomas. That's kind of what I felt like he was trying to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, I don't remember what I was going to say, but yes. I was going to expand on it, and then my mind went blank. Um, what was some other
That's another good example
things?
of
Yeah.
him building tension that fits within the horror genre, and all they're doing is having a committee. But I remember
Mm.
reading
Right.
that and being like, oh dang, like what is Harold gonna say? And like, that whole page before like he speaks, like it's Stu like wondering what's gonna happen and thinking. And I think that's just excellent that because the situation is so dire, it makes even things like that just have huge consequence. And it almost gives you that same feeling of stage fright that you kind of know Stu has too, especially considering how much is writing on this, and this is the first like
Right.
full meeting with everybody. um like that's just great. You captured the fear of speaking in front of people, which is a fear that most people have,
Yeah.
in this apocalypse scenario. Just that really struck me too.
I could feel it because I also feel the same way. But it's required. So you just got to do it. But also when everybody just stands up and is just like cheering for like 5 minutes or however long. Um, I was thinking about it, and uh, I think at first I kind of thought like that's just seems kind of silly a little bit. Like he hasn't even started talking. He just walked on stage. He hasn't even started talking, and they're just cheering. But it is the first time they've all gathered together. At least all the people who are there, because it's growing every day basically. But they are all first together. It is sort of the first moment where you realize this is it. There's people on the other side of the mountains. We know that there's a threat over there, but this is the US. This is America.
Hmm.
It is so it is really emotional. It's like, okay, no, I can see that. I can see that. And I thought it was really cool the way he depicted that. Um,
Um.
go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna point out something that I saw that was interesting.
Mhm.
So when I was looking at the very beginning of the book and the Edward Dorn guy, the poet, um, at least in my digital copy, right at the beginning there, it says the circle opens,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and then if you look through the table of contents, when the book ends, it says the circle closes. And
Oh yeah, I see that. Okay. And it ends with
what,
the same thing. We need help, the poet reckoned.
yeah. So what I thought was interesting was chapter 23 is when they first
Okay.
introduce Flag for the very first time. And it's talking about Flag. And right near the end of the chapter, um, it says,
Yeah, I just pulled it up.
His
Near the end. Oh, go ahead.
So the paragraph where it says his time of transfiguration was at hand, he was going to be born for the second time. I'm gonna skip reading over some of
I
that.
wondered.
I'm not reading all that. He had been born when times changed, and the times are going to change again. It was in the
Yeah.
wind of the soft Idaho evening. It was almost time to be reborn. He knew, why else could he suddenly do magic? So then he closes his eyes, and then he's able to levitate off the road. Um, so the way I was interpreting that, so he starts the book by saying the circle opens. So it's almost like this cycle, right? This constant cycle.
Yeah.
And then so he's born when times change, almost like, the circle's opening, so the cycle is broken because there's
Right.
this huge upheaval. In this case, it's obviously most of the population of the world being wiped out, and so that it's like that's what brings him forth, is when there's this break in the cycle and there's this
Right.
big change, and then that's when he basically is dumped into like this new body, and he's like born, and I guess, and then he gets like power from that. It's almost like he
Yeah.
draws power from this huge upheaval or this
Right.
chaos.
Chaos
um
and heartbreak and yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then also when you're reading about like his origin, where he's kind of like this timeless character, or like he doesn't, he's almost like immortal, and it's talking about how he was hanging out with Charles Starkweather. If you look that up, it was like a spree killer that actually exists.
Okay.
He goes down to New Orleans and meets up with Oswald, the
Yeah.
assassin.
Yep.
And it's almost like wherever he goes, it's like he draws, either he's drawn to evil, or like evil's drawn to him. And it kind of made me think of it, where they,
Yes.
like that
Yep.
very first scene in it, where um because the guy's gay, so they throw him off the bridge. It's like they're full of hate,
Right.
and it's like they're feeding off of the creature. um and that was actually that actually did happen. That's a real crime that occurred in Bangor, I want to say. That's where he got that idea from, because it
Okay.
actually, I believe it was Bangor, Maine, where that actually happened, where he pulled that incident from. But anyway, I don't know.
Interesting.
I thought that was interesting, because it's like his thought process of like how these bad guys work.
Right. Yeah. So you said something interesting where you said you weren't sure if he is attracted to evil or chaos, or if chaos and evil is attracted to him. I almost feel like
Yeah,
it's a little bit of both. Like
yeah,
I think just his presence there um breeds that and
hmm,
and makes that come about. But
yeah,
also he probably like he's going to show up around these people because he recognizes that they have that inclination in them, possibly,
yeah, yeah,
and his presence just brings that out of them, and then
yeah,
breeds chaos and evil things. And
yeah.
uh I could see it being a little bit of both. That's really cool. I did think of I have the whole time I have thought of the monster in it
Hmm, hmm,
whenever Randall Flagg is brought up. I think I made a note. So I've been taking notes on my phone, and I actually kind of need to go back and look at the few chapters that I noted, because I feel like I read one recently where, again, it made me think of it.
Yeah.
But we may need to come back to it because I may be wrong.
Well, I was
It,
thinking as you guys were talking about the whole like nature of the circle, the more I think about it, the more that's present in a lot of Stephen King's books. And I feel like it even mentions the circle opening and closing in it. We'll have to like I imagine I'll
You
reread
may
it
be
one day or we
right.
will. But that's
Yeah.
really ringing a bell each time we've talked about it. But Stephen King has this concept that I'm starting to see more that evil is cyclical.
yeah.
Um, it
Yeah.
was on a
Yeah. It's
on a
always going
pattern,
to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and the circle kind of represents that too. It's like
Mhm.
you always hear about in fantasy books like, oh, we have to maintain the balance between good and evil, and that's not a realistic expectation because that's not how it works. You don't ever just have a flat line. You have scatter
Yeah.
plot
There
at
is no.
best.
You're not settling anything.
Yeah, and it's this constant wave. And yeah, the more I think about his books, the more I think that that's like the underlying tone of sinisterness
Mhm.
is that like
Mhm.
it's gonna happen again, even with like Salem's Lot, which we read before we started the podcast. That there's this kind of impending doom at the end of it because they're not done,
Right.
because they talk about going back and they talk about that at the very beginning of the book, another one of those
Yep.
like beginning to end scenarios. But when I finish that book, you have this feeling that like now we know vampires are real in this world. Like
Right.
that's not good. That's going to happen again. This is going to repeat somewhere else.
It's
And
cyclical. Yeah.
even it's cyclical with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Marston house and the evil
Yeah.
that happened there and how that, you know, unrighteously sanctified the grounds for Barlow being able to live in that house to his full power. Like that
Mhm.
whole evil is a cycle and you don't maintain balance, but you go through these waves of peace and hell.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, I
I
wonder
mean,
if
the
we'll
same.
see that in future books.
Yeah, the same can be said in it, absolutely, because he doesn't come around, but for every 30 years
Yeah,
or
30
something
something
is what
years.
it
Yeah.
is. It's
Yeah.
usually, and it's never. I don't think it's ever like exactly like here's year 30 and
Yeah, you
it
can't like
comes
tune your
back. It's
clock to
like
it.
it's like
Mhm.
29 or like 31. It's like it's around that number. But that is also very cyclical as well. He may talk about the circle opening. He may mention that. I don't remember. It's been a while since I have read it, maybe like a couple years or something. But that is interesting.
Yeah.
Trying to find that.
It's funny because on my screen, Christy's reading and Jeremy, you're looking to the side, so it looks like you're like magically looking through the screen to like see what
Looking
she's
at
looking
what
at.
I'm reading.
Oh
That's
yeah.
really funny.
I'm
Little
looking
fun
down
for
at
me.
my copy too. I'm looking over at it.
Okay, who were we? I think this is okay. This is chapter 50, and I
Mhm.
marked down page 658. And this is Mother Abigail, or at least this portion of the chapter, not the whole chapter, is from her perspective. But I believe this is where she's thinking uh, about her pride, and she talks about how pride is the mother of sin, and of course that's eventually why she sort of goes off on her own with almost no warning, because she's not talking or hearing from God anymore. So uh, she thinks she's offended him in some way or sinned against him in some way, and she sort of comes to the conclusion that it's her pride that has done that, and so she goes off. But let me find the specific place in here. 658.
Yeah, that whole conversation with Nadine and Mother Abigail
Oh my
is
god.
so intense.
I was like, the hair was standing like on the back of my neck. Yeah, it made me feel so uneasy. I was like, what is she gonna do? Is she gonna stab her right there in front of everybody? Um All right, I can't find it. Did I mark down the wrong page? It's possible. But okay, so I just took like a portion of a sentence, and I could have been like falling asleep when I noted this too. Let's be honest. But I have written in my phone here. It's just a portion of a sentence, and it's looking into a hole in time and space. And I think maybe I wrote that down because that by itself just made me think of it, because the monster in it sort of, it lives or exists outside of time and space. He crashes to Earth, millions of years ago. And then at the end, when they're coming to a head, you sort of get taken through this like, you know, otherworldly battle of sorts,
Mm-hmm.
and it just feels very, very much like it exists outside of time and space. And so that, I think she's talking about Randall Flagg. Oh, wait, hold on. Okay, so she is talking about Nadine because she's meeting Nadine at this moment, and she says she was not above feeling fear for herself, and for one instant she felt this strange woman with the white in her hair would reach out almost casually and snap her neck. For the one instant the feeling held, Mother Abigail actually fancied that the woman's face was gone, and she was looking into a hole in time and space, a hole from which two eyes, dark and damned, stared out at her, eyes that were lost and haggard and hopeless. That made me think
Mm.
of the monster in it as well. Staring, especially the looking into a hole in time and space, and there's just these dark eyes, and it was like, I somehow they have to be related, like, or from the same place.
I
of
I don't
evil.
I
yeah.
I believe, don't they say that it comes from what he calls like the macroverse, where it's like another dimension? Um, and I remember 2 episodes back, Christy was talking about how the origin of Nadine isn't actually clear, like where she's from or
Oh, right.
how she came about. And I kept thinking about that, and I was like, is he trying to imply that she's from maybe like this macroverse, or something like that?
And that's why
Um,
she's so connected to him. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, because you were right. He's very vague about where she came from or what her origin is. And I think he
Right.
did that on purpose so that you can kind of connect the dots and like maybe she's
Yeah.
not from this dimension, you know?
Right. Right.
Hmm.
And he was, even when she tells the story where she was in college and the girls in her house were using the planchette
Hmm.
more as just like a fun, silly game, and sort of making up silly answers to questions or whatever. And she comes in, her friend is like, "No, you join. Let's see what the spirits have to say to you." And it just like it glues them to it, which that whole scene was terrifying. Um
Absolutely.
and was written so well. So even before she understood anything or knew anything, he is already reaching out to her and connected to her,
Hmm.
just from the moment she is even born. Even if she's born on this earth and came from this earth, he's connected to her. But something in me makes me think that she's otherworldly herself, because we have no idea.
Mm.
She's adopted, but other than that,
Hmm.
there's no mention of who her biological parents were, or where they came from, or where she came from before she was adopted. Yeah. So
That kind of fits with like one of the things about it that I always found interesting, was that one of the things that was so scary about it was that it was a mother. Like it like was able to like have offspring, and that it was like the
yeah,
twisting of all maternal concepts. Like it was the exact opposite of all of that. But also I thought like,
for us to think
why
about.
why does it have eggs now? It's been alive for
Uh,
millions of years. It's been feeding on people forever. Like, did it like it's clearly trying to reproduce.
Right.
Why are they only eggs now? So like maybe that's too conspiracy deep theory that like, oh, she's the daughter of it. But
Maybe
like
though.
maybe
Maybe.
there's that might have been an idea that Stephen King was hinting at, that it is an integral force of evil on this earth and has been here for as long as there's been, any type of evil to act upon, conscious beings. And maybe that has a bigger place within the story.
Right.
Hmm. Yeah,
That's what I say.
yeah, I keep getting a similar feeling, and I
I
definitely think
like.
he's, yeah.
I very much like the theory that she was born of it.
And like and not just
I
Nadine,
like that.
let's not throw all that evil on her, but like
No, that's fair.
that
She's
it could have been like party to all of the evil that we see in his books, because whatever it's been birthing this whole time has gone out to like be its own evil thing somewhere else, like whether or not that's like, a little baby spider spirit that went, couldn't manifest like it because it didn't
Mm.
spend time in the macroverse becoming strong, so it's
Yeah,
just like has to go and do what it can. Its mom's not going to take care of it. Like,
yeah. I mean, that actually makes sense, because if it lives in another dimension, the macroverse, but then can come through to our world, right? So, I mean, why not? I
yeah.
mean,
makes me wonder about the dreamcatcher creature, like, are they cousins?
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
I need to read that as well because I'm curious about that too. Because they are um alien. They're clearly not from Earth.
Yeah.
They don't originate from
I,
Earth.
I feel like all
So
of the non-Earth entities that I've encountered in any kind of way within Stephen King are evil. And it's like you're either
yeah.
evil and there's something otherness or space about you or hell about you, or you're good and you have the shining.
Yeah. Yeah, actually. Could we say the same for the vampires in Salem's Lot then? Because
Maybe that was her first child.
they are human. Well, they start out human at least, but if they're bitten, right?
Who knows what
I don't
those
know.
vampires came from? They could have come from anywhere.
Maybe the disease itself. I don't know.
Possibly.
The bottle
Well,
next to Captain Trips was vampirism.
I we're just gonna have to read Dark Tower 1 through 4, and then mysteriously we're gonna take a break and then read Salem's Lot, and then we're gonna read book 5 of Dark Tower. No reason.
Yeah. That's
Oh,
really
well, okay.
specific, and it definitely sounds like there's no
It's
reason for it.
very much sounds like you're hinting.
Not
Okay.
at all. Not at all. We just have to take a break specifically there.
Just because, it's like 4 books in a row of the same series. So, you don't want to get tired of it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
It's
Not
funny because that sounds like me trying to get somebody to start reading Brandon Sanderson, and I'm like, so these are the series, but this is how you should enjoy it.
I'm not saying they're interrelated at all. I'm not saying they're interrelated.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Everything's
So
a Cosmere.
Wow.
cool.
Remember in the first episode when Justin came and brought me coffee?
It was the best.
Yeah. You should tell him he should do that every single time
I'll
now.
let him know you should work on
And he has
Yeah.
failed. He has failed the last 2 times
You need
or
to work
3
on it.
times. What are we on? Is this the 4th one or is it what's the 5th
Uh,
one?
this would be the 4th one.
This would
Yeah.
be okay. Okay.
We had to, and then
So the
it was boys
last
boys night out.
right. Why is that? You need those sometimes.
We went
Okay, so the last
crazy.
3.
You
Yeah.
do. God.
No girls around.
It was spoilers everywhere.
Well, he needs to step it up then.
I'll let him know. I'll tell him you said that. Let us
All
know in the
right.
comments. Should Justin bring me coffee? I've always
Should he
wanted to say
bring-
something like that.
Or should he bring something else?
Or should I
Something-
be reprimanded for expecting things and not making those expectations known?
He should bring a planchette, but really something else.
I'm forever gonna think of. I don't know. I'm gonna forever think of that now.
We're
Not
gonna
that
be
anybody-
sending pictures of like weird, like sea vessel navigation tool dildos,
Themed, yeah, themed in
compasses,
like
stuff on them.
naval. I just not that anybody ever uses that in just normal conversation. But if I ever hear
Surprised
that
I don't
word
have one near
outside,
me as a prop.
that's a problem. If I ever hear that word outside of this setting, that's just what I'm gonna think of. And then I'm gonna think, are they actually referring to the real?
I'm seeing if Hallmark has a have a nice planchette card. I bet they don't. They don't.
We need to make it.
Should. I was also reading, so how, like, on the wiki pages, you can find some object, and it'll have a section where it says in like pop culture, basically.
Yeah.
So it lists some references where a planchette is used in pop culture, which, funnily enough, The Stand is not mentioned at all. But two other books are mentioned. In fact, the Haunting of Hill House, they use a planchette.
Oh,
I would love
really?
for us to read that
Which
together.
I
haven't
would
read it.
love.
Yeah.
I've never read it either, but I would love to read it. So I
Yeah.
saw that last night when I was looking up what a planchette was. But another thing I thought that was interesting was one of the winners of RuPaul's Drag Race wore it. I think when on like the final episode wore a actual planchette on their forehead as like a fashion statement. It was very interesting.
That is interesting.
I was like, okay. And then I don't now I didn't look. It was late. I didn't look up a picture because I was very curious, but now I am curious. I want to see a picture. I don't remember the contestant's name, but
Wanted to post a picture of a dildo on someone's head in the chat and realized this is my work computer and I shouldn't do.
that's probably a good idea. Let me pull it up. In popular culture, drag queen Sharon Needles wore a mystic hand planchette on her forehead as a fashion statement when she was crowned America's Next Drag Superstar in RuPaul's Drag Race in 2012. Okay, let me see. Now I'm just curious. I have to look it up. And I guess people thought it was a reproduction, but she confirmed that it was an original wooden planchette from 1940.
Oh wow.
Which is very interesting.
Yeah.
Oh
that's
my
wild.
gosh.
That's a legit one.
Yes, it is. Holy crap. That's interesting.
Post it.
That is a planchette. Where are we here?
That's gonna be our first piece of swag. It's gonna be like an enamel pin, and it's gonna be a dildo with like a compass rose behind it. Say planchette. That's
That is
cool.
a planchette.
Interesting.
Yeah. I wasn't not expecting to read. Like there's a few songs like from the late or mid to late 1800s written about that. Like that makes sense. A couple probably more books because The Stand is not even mentioned in here, which I thought that was interesting. Yeah. Just an interesting note.
Yeah. Well, we have almost
I think
hit an
we're at an
hour.
hour, right?
I think
Yeah.
we're about at a
Yeah.
hour. Um, did you guys have any closing comments?
I can't wait for the 4th Slut Tribunal.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
can't wait to draw our coat of arms that will have a planchette on it.
Oh,
Oh,
I like it.
I approve. Yes,
Mm.
I love it.
That's how we get our power. We draw power from it.
Our slut power.
Y'all realize it's going to be a dildo, right?
I should have known.
We know now.
Now
Excited.
I can't wait.
Cool.
Instead of swords, it's
Planchettes.
yeah, it's 2
Exactly.
planchettes. Yeah.
That's our coat of arms.
Is there Microsoft Paint on this computer?
I hope so.
God, please do it in Paint. Yeah, there is Paint, or at least there's on mine.
All
I've
right.
got Windows 10.
I'll deliver. I got nothing to do Monday.
Perfect. Perfect. All
I'm
right.
excited to see this.
All right. Signing off from our 4th episode. All right. See
Till
ya.
next time.
Till-
Bye.
Bye.